Imagine this for a second. There's a huge, multi-million-dollar government project. We're talking a brand new highway or maybe a state-of-the-art hospital. The cranes are swinging, the concrete is being poured, everything's moving along. And then it all just stops. The entire project is delayed. Deadlines are flying by, costs are just piling up, and the fines for the contractor, they're ticking up into the stratosphere. So what happens now? Who ends up paying the price when it all goes sideways? Well, today we're going to dive into the fascinating, high-stakes world of Thai government contracts and find out. Because let's be real, in the world of big government projects, things do go wrong. It's pretty much a fact of life. I mean, whether it's a massive piece of infrastructure or a super complex IT system, delays are almost baked into the schedule. But the multi-million-dollar question is always the same. Is the contractor on the hook for all this, or is there a way out? This right here is where the fine print in the contract becomes an absolute lifeline. It really all comes down to one key piece of law that basically acts as the official rulebook for when things go completely off the rails. We're talking about Section 102 of the 2017 Public Procurement Act. You're going to want to remember that one, because it's at the heart of this entire issue. It's the legal lever that allows the government to say, okay, you know what, this wasn't your fault, and either slash the fines or push back the deadline. And it gives a very specific number of reasons for doing that. 4. That's it. The law lays out exactly 4 legal grounds for a contractor to get some relief. Now, 3 of them are pretty straightforward, but the 4th one, well, the 4th is kind of like a mystery box. So, here are the 4 reasons. First, government fault. Second, force majeure, an act of God. Third, incidents where the contractor just isn't legally responsible. And then there's this last one, other reasons specified in ministerial regulations. Keep your eye on that one. It's the interesting one. We'll come back to it. For now, let's unpack those first 3. All right, so first, let's break down the 3 standard, pretty well-defined reasons a contractor can ask for a break. These are the kinds of day-to-day problems the law is built to handle. The first one is simple. It's the government's own fault. I mean, if the state agency is the reason for the delay, they can't exactly turn around and penalize the contractor for it, right? A classic example is when the government is supposed to hand over the construction site on day 1, but they can't. The site is delivered late, so the project deadline has to be extended. It's only fair. Second on the list is force majeure, or what most of us would call an act of God. And the law makes a really important distinction here. This isn't just some bad weather. The predictable seasonal monsoon that happens every single year, that is not force majeure. The contractor should have planned for that. But a sudden freak typhoon that nobody saw coming, that is a whole different story. The event has to be both unforeseeable and totally unpreventable. And this third reason, it's a fascinating one. You can think of it as a legal safety net. It covers things that aren't quite a massive act of God, but are still completely outside the contractor's control and definitely not their fault. For example, imagine the construction crew starts digging, and all of a sudden they unearth ancient archaeological ruins. Everything has to stop, right now. It's nobody's fault, but the project is now on hold. It's a perfect example of the law building in a buffer for the truly unexpected. Okay, so those are the 3 pretty clear-cut reasons. But remember that 4th one? The mystery box? This is where our story takes a really interesting turn. The law says relief can be granted for other reasons specified in ministerial regulations, which of course leads to the obvious question, what exactly are those other reasons? And here is the puzzle. When you actually go looking for that ministerial regulation, that definitive list of other reasons, you find absolutely nothing. It doesn't exist. There is no permanent standing list. So we have a law that points to a rule book that isn't even there. How in the world does this powerful clause actually get used in the real world? Well, the answer doesn't lie in some dusty old document, but in a dynamic group of people who have the power to basically write the rules as they go. I'd like you to meet the Procurement Ruling Committee, known in Thai as the Galwa Jar or Kowar Jar. This committee right here holds the key. They have the authority to interpret procurement law and, more importantly, to issue what are called administrative circulars. Now, these circulars aren't laws themselves, but in practice, they are binding on all government agencies. These folks are the secret rule makers that fill that legal gap. So here's the playbook for how it works in a crisis. A huge event happens, say a pandemic or a historic flood. The K-Word J-Word committee gets together to figure out how this is going to impact government contracts all across the country. Then,
they issue an administrative circular. And for as long as that crisis lasts, that circular effectively becomes the fourth reason. It's an amazing, flexible, real-time response system.
And the committee's response really adapts to the crisis. Let's look at two cases. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the impact was systemic, it was nationwide. So the committee issued a single, uniform policy for everyone, a 0% penalty rate for all affected contracts. They basically used this rule as a tool for economic stability. But for major floods, which are more regional and localized, the response was totally different. They issued a flexible policy, telling agencies to review each project on a case-by-case basis.
This table really brings it all together and makes it super clear. You can see the first three reasons, government fault, force majeure, and no-fault incidents, they're typically specific to a single project, and they get reviewed on a case-by-case basis. But that fourth reason, the one activated by the core word JOR, that's for system-wide crises, and it usually comes with a standard guideline that every single agency has to follow. You could call it the government's emergency override switch.
So we've kind of solved the mystery of the fourth reason. But what does all of this mean in practice? Like, if you're a contractor, how do you actually use this system to survive a project delay? The whole process really boils down to this 5-step survival guide. First, you identify the problem the second it happens. Second, you classify it. Is this a force majeure, a government fault, or maybe it's a national crisis covered by one of those special circulars? Third, and this is so important, you document everything. I'm talking photos, daily reports, emails, evidence is king. Fourth, you notify the government agency and you have to do it fast. And fifth, you make your formal request for relief and you submit all that evidence you gathered. Now, I really want to pause on that notification step because it is the single most important rule in this entire process. You absolutely must notify the state agency within 15 days of the event ending. Think of it as a procedural gateway. If you fail to walk through that gate in time, it doesn't matter how good your reason is. The door slams shut and your right to claim any relief is gone. Just poof, forever. So what this all really shows us is a cleverly designed system. On one hand, it provides a clear, firm structure with those first three reasons, but it also has this flexible escape valve, that mysterious fourth reason, that allows it to respond to massive, unforeseen national crises. This approach turns boring old contract law into a powerful policy tool, balancing rigid rules with the flexibility you need to face the real world. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. When a true crisis hits, a pandemic, a natural disaster, what do we value more in our public systems? Sticking rigidly to the rules just as they were written, or having a mechanism that allows us to bend those rules in search of a fair and adaptive solution? That's really the central tension this entire legal framework is designed to manage.